Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ice Cold Takes podcast. I am your host, Joey DeMeglio, and I have a special episode in store for everyone this week. Today, I am joined by a Rangers fan favorite and four-time Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award winner, the 26th captain in New York Rangers history, Ryan Callahan. Ryan, it is an honor to have you on the show. Thank you for joining. How are you?
I'm doing good, Joey. Thanks for having me on. You were persistent on Twitter, so I thought I'd hop on and share some time with you. So it's all good. I enjoyed it.
I have a knack for that. I get creative with Photoshop here and there, and some of the followers they kind of chip into here and there with Weeksy. But I'm glad you're here. Saw you covering the game last night. I'll ask you about that. But I gotta start by telling this is not the first time I've spoken to you face to face. I gotta throw it back. I have a story
Yeah.
here I gotta share here. So in 2011, in January, the Rangers had a subscriber season ticket event, and we had some fans, like you guys had some fans ask questions to the into the microphone. And after you're talking about your favorite reality shows like Toddlers and Tiaras and Jersey Shore and Real Housewives, um, I came up and me and my uncle, we got to ask questions, and I asked you when the Rangers were going to win the cup.
Yeah.
And the whole place after that got kind of like started clapping, saying "Let's go Rangers" and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll never forget that. And then afterwards, my uncle, who since he's passed away, so I do the show in honor of him. He asked you because of your love of country music,
Yeah.
who you preferred, Toby Keith or George Strait, and you
Yeah.
said Toby Keith.
Toby Keith. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that.
I vaguely do remember that, and I'm sorry about your uncle's passing. But yeah, I do vaguely remember that. Those fan stuff we did with the Rangers were the best. Those Q&As.
Hmm.
I mean, so fun. You could see the passion from all the fans, and as you said, um, just hearing the "Let's Go Ranger" chants that would break out randomly with questions and everything else. So those are fun days in New York. I definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah, and like the crew there that you guys had, the team, it's so memorable. Like
Yeah.
Dubinsky and Boyle, Prust, those guys. Like I always wonder, do you still keep in touch with them, or is that bond forever?
Yeah,
Do you still
I talk
talk
to
to
those
them?
guys all the time. So,
Awesome.
yeah, those guys you mentioned, obviously Boiler and me played in Tampa together as well. So we talk all the time. Me and Girardi, who played in Tampa as well together, we are really close. Our families are close. We talk all the time. And now working for ESPN when I'm on the road a little bit, I just saw McDonough in Nashville. We hung out a little bit. They were playing Carolina, so Derek Stepan was in town. I went to dinner with him. We still chat all the time. Those teams we were so close. We grew up together, right? I mean, a lot of us started in Hartford together. Me, Dubinsky, Girardi were in Hartford together. Then our first year up, Stahl came. So I'm still close with Mark Stahl. And it seemed like, I don't know, we were such a tight group, and looking back now, almost 15 years later from when we started, we're still as close as we were before. We still text each other, and those guys text me all the time when I'm on air telling me I said something stupid or I'm wearing something dumb or whatever it is. So we still bust each other's chops just like we did 15 years ago in the room.
Yeah, and it was a family, man. It was such a treat to be able to see you guys. I actually recently went back and rewatched the HBO series,
Oh yeah.
you and the Flyers. Man, that was intense. Like that was awesome. Like seeing both perspectives, like the Flyers locker or
Yeah.
the dressing room and the Rangers dressing room. And I mean, I always go back to him, but the guy that almost like the glue is like Torts. I,
Yeah.
I always loved Tortorella, and I mean when you guys work together on ESPN, you always mesh so well together from your playing days to when you guys were in studio together. Like, what was that relationship like with Torts? You still keep in touch with him as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I do. We still exchange text messages and things like that. But I didn't know what to expect when Torts was the coach and he came in. You hear the veterans, the rumblings of if he's a hard coach, he's going to be tough on us. But I didn't know him at all. I didn't really know his reputation, to be honest with you. And then I owe a lot to Torts. He gave me an opportunity. He played me a ton. I realized really quickly under him that if you worked hard, you played the right way, and you stuck to the system, that you were going to get ice time, right? So that's what I tried to do. Obviously, he named me captain, and like I said, I owe so much to him, and his passion really bleeds through to the team. And I think we were an extension of him, right? They called us the black and blue shirts, and the way we played, and everybody bought in. We realized that we weren't the most skilled team. We didn't have all the superstars on our team, but we had good players, obviously. But we realized if we played a certain way, that we were going to have success. And we tried to do that, and obviously that was Torts coming in and changing our mindset and our basically our identity. So it's those were special years under him. Like I said, I owe him a lot. I still talk to him now. It was fun to see him on the media side of things, and still grouchy and cranky sometimes, in the studio, and yelling at some people within the studio, and all joking and good fun, of course. But yeah, he's I owe a lot to Torts for sure for where he brought me and how much he taught me about about playing both sides of the puck.
Black and blue shirts. I love it. I bet the current Rangers could use some of that right now. We'll get into that for sure. But I mean, like with Torts, do you have any stories that you have that you could share that are PG for the audience?
Yeah. As you know, there's plenty of stories with Torts. The list goes on with him. One of my favorite ones, is so me and Brad Richards, and him and Richards were really close as well. So we'd be together a lot, me and Richie, and sometimes we'd like to say things to Torts just to get him going, and we knew it was going to get him going. So Richie had protein shakes and like vitamins and stuff in his stall, and so Torts one day was going through and he saw all this stuff. He's like, Richie, what's all these potions you're taking? Why are you taking all this stuff? You don't need it, so gave it to him a little bit. So fast forward like a week, me and Richie are sitting in the room by ourselves, and Torts walks through, and I'm like, hey, Torts, Richie hasn't gotten rid of the potions yet. He's still taking all that stuff. I think it's clouding his head. So he snaps, he flips out, Rich, get rid of that stuff out of your stall. It's getting in your head. You don't need it. And then, so we had a good laugh. And then we fast forward another couple weeks later, same situation. We're sitting in the room. Torts walks through and he's like, hey, Torts, did you know Callie's baby is due right during playoffs? Right. So Torts just dead stare, didn't say anything. He looks at me, he goes, I missed the birth of both of my kids. And he walks out of the room, and me and Richie are just rolling on the ground, laughing and dying. And, that's, things like that. I remember that were just so funny. You get him going, and he knows what we're doing. He's playing along too, and that's one thing people don't realize about Torts too. He has this, hard exterior shell that everybody sees in the media and everything else. But you couldn't meet a nicer guy. And, even that story there saying I missed the birth, like he cared about family so much, and cared about the guys so much and what was happening away from the rink as well. So, it was fun playing under him. We had some fun with him though. It was easy to push his buttons sometimes.
Yeah, he's definitely a class act. It's just that I always go back and watch like his media interviews. Like the one time in Columbus, someone's phone rang and he answered it for the reporter. It's like, oh, this is John Tortorella, coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Yeah. Rupper told me a story from practice about you guys shooting the puck along the boards and that it freaked him out or whatever. And he got livid.
He was easy to get going sometimes too. Guys knew it and pushed his buttons a little bit, but yeah, he was. I loved playing for him. It was awesome.
And speaking of practice, I've heard stories about like how Hank was in practice. Such a serious guy, such a competitive guy, and at all points, at all moments of when he's playing hockey, like on or off the ice. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what was it like? Did you ever score on him in practice, and what was his reaction?
Yeah, that crew that we talked about with like Girardi, Stahl, Staps, McDonough, like. We made practice pretty fun. Like if one guy was struggling during practice, we'd cue on him. We'd watch him the whole time. We'd cheer when he'd mess up, yell his name a ton. So we were always messing with each other constantly. And once you started to have a bad practice, you knew everybody was watching too, right? So you're like, come on, like, every pass was coming. You're like, don't fumble the pass, don't miss passes because guys are going to start cheering. So we used to do it to Hank too. Like if we saw Hank was letting in a few goals in practice and you could see he's starting to get frustrated, we'd be sitting in line and, one of us would go down and score on him. And then everybody would start banging the boards, celebrating. And you could just see Hank steaming and getting madder and madder. And, I actually sat next to Hanky in the practice rink, is right next to the right of me in the stalls. And, it was after practice, same thing. We we were messing with him all practice. He was having a tough practice. He was snapping. And I still remember he comes in, he goes, Callie, can I just come here and practice and not have to deal with all you guys chirping me the whole time? And so so it was good though. He was fun. I mean, but that's what he is. He's a competitor, right? Like that's how he is. There's no way he could ever turn it off. And it's probably what made him so good.
You think Henrik will invite you on his podcast? You think you'll be a member of the Club 30?
I don't know. It sounds like he's got a lot of A-listers coming on that thing right now. So I might be on the second wave, maybe year 3. Once
year 3. Come on, don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, once he gets all the celebrities done, maybe I'll be year 3 of the Hank podcast.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Great stories so far. I mean, also like when you finished your playing career, shifting from playing to ESPN, did you always know you wanted to do that, or was that just an opportunity that came up and you wanted to take it?
Yeah, just an opportunity. I mean, while I was playing, if someone said you're going to be in the media, I would have told them they were crazy. Like, no chance. You know what I mean? Like, there's no chance I'm going to be on that side of it. But the opportunity came actually when the World Cup was going on. I made the U.S. World Cup team, and I had to have hip surgery, so I couldn't go to the tournament. And the NHL Network called and said, "Do you want to cover the World Cup? Come in for a couple of days." And I was doing nothing else. I was just rehabbing my hip at the time. So I'm like, whatever, I'll go in and sit on the desk and see how I like it. And I really enjoyed it. I had fun doing it. So at that point, I kind of in the back of my head, at that moving forward, I'm like, maybe, when I'm done playing, that'll be an option, something me to jump into. And then the year my contract, I still was under contract, but I had to retire because of my back with Ottawa. The NHL Network again called and said, do you want to come in for some shows and do it again? And at the time, again, I wasn't doing anything. So I said, yeah, I'll come in. And I remember I still told them, like, I have no idea if I'm going to like it. I have no idea if I'm going to be terrible at this, but, I'll come in and I'll give it a shot. And, it's been fun. I watch the games constantly anyways. I like talking hockey. And I've really enjoyed working for ESPN too. We got a good group of guys there. We have fun, in studio. We have fun. We're on the road doing games. So it's been a really good mix. And I'm still learning, still trying to figure things out, but I've enjoyed it.
I think from your playing career, you have a lot of insight into how things are done. Like that first game 1 of the Oilers Kings, you guys, Weeksy and Bucci were really, really good. You guys like the chemistry there is so apparent. Even when like you're in studio, whatever it is, like the 3 of you guys mesh really well together. I don't know if it's because of the chicken parm or
something, right? It's a chicken parm or something.
Yeah,
that's part of it, right? You got to be comfortable with the guys you're working with and work off each other. And I appreciate you saying that. And you can feel it when you're on set. When 3 guys that we literally, it's when we're watching the game in studio, it feels like me and my buddies are just chatting and watching the game and seeing what's going on. So it's been enjoyable.
Yeah, and like Weeksy was your teammate too. You played with him for a little bit, right, with the Rangers. So, did you know him very well, or was it like you're getting to know him better now that you're working together?
Yeah, better now for sure. I mean, I was up and down that year a little bit, and I knew him, but not like I do now, where we're together, constantly working together. And I'd see him around the rink because he got into the TV stuff while I was still playing, so we would chat then. But yeah, I've definitely got to know him better over the last couple of years. And he was at the NHL Network when I was there as well. So he's awesome. I mean, he's such a great guy. He's actually taught me a lot, and I've leaned on him a ton, with the TV stuff, just little pointers here and there because he's so good at it and he's been doing it for so long now.
Yeah, he's one of the most like humble, down to earth guys.
Yes.
He's awesome. I love Weeksy. The breaking news videos are incredible. I love it. It adds so much flavor to like the news news world. I love it. I love it so much. You mentioned that you were that year that you were playing with Weeksy is like you were going up and down between the minors, and I wanted to ask you. I mean, we've talked a lot on this podcast. People have asked, with the development of Lafreniere, Kakko, and Rangers have another prospect coming up, Brennan Othmann. Like what did you learn from playing in the minors? And is that where should everybody go there? Like if you're not ready for the NHL, like if you're kind of a tweener. I mean, in Lafreniere's case, first overall pick, it's kind of hard to say you have to go to Hartford or minor leagues, whatever you're going to go. But like, what did you learn from playing in the minors, and how did that impact your career?
Yeah, I mean, you learn a ton, to be honest with you. And I think everybody's situation is different, as you mentioned. If you're looking at the guys now, like Lafreniere, and when he was drafted, he wasn't even old enough to go to the minors at that point, right? So, where do you send him and things like that? But I mean, for me personally, I wasn't ready to step into the NHL, not even close coming out of junior hockey. And when I went to the A, you kind of just learn how to be a pro, and it's a tough league. At the time, it's changed a bit now, but at the time, it was a tough league. Like, you had to work. I mean, there were some guys down there, some journeymen that have been there forever. They, the nickname is the Jungle, and then it's the Jungle for a reason. You're playing 3 games in 3 nights. You got to figure out how to produce. You got to figure out how to be a pro. You're living on your own. For me, for the first time, so it teaches you a lot about the pro game, I think. And prepares you with, the size of the players, obviously, the speed of the game, just everything, all around. It really is kind of that feeding ground into the NHL and that next step. I know me personally, I wasn't ready to step into the NHL at that point. So that first year I spent in Hartford and getting called up and down a couple of times, and then I ended up playing the playoffs that year. And then even so my second year, I played 8 games. I hurt my knee. I came back. And I didn't have a point for 24 games after that. And they sent me back to Hartford for 10 games. Even that, to have that, go back there and just get my confidence back, start playing again, playing power play time, getting points, playing a ton, that revived me as well. So I think it's a good option for guys in certain situations. If, they need a confidence boost, things are down, conditioning, or feeding, or you're just coming in the league to start out to learn how to play.
I always try and figure out, I like to ask the question, it's when did you realize that you belonged in the NHL? I know you played a couple games and then you had the knee issues and you went down, you came back up. But at what point what was the moment that you realized you belong on the Rangers and that you're here to stay?
Yeah, I don't know if there was one exact moment I'm here. You know what I mean? I don't know if you ever really feel comfortable until you're there a couple of years, to be honest with you, at least for me. I think I got a reality check, because I'll tell you what, that my first year pro, I got called up and down. Then I played the playoffs that year. I had a really good playoffs that year. We ended up losing to Buffalo in the second round. So then going into that next year, I thought I'd make, I'm I belong. I had a great playoffs. This is where I'm going to be. I belong. I hurt my knee then, and things go the other way. And once I got sent down, it kind of opened up my eyes. You know what? You got to earn this. Nothing's given to you here. Everybody's trying to fight for jobs. Everybody's coming to try to take your paycheck, take your spot. You got to work for it. So at that moment, as I got sent down, funny story. I still remember I got sent down. I was talking to my dad on the phone. I was driving from New York to Hartford, right, and chatting with him. And he's like, some of the positive things are things can't get much worse, go down to work. And literally, as he says that, a rock comes up, hits my windshield, and spiders my windshield. And I literally still remember, I go, well, Dad, things got just a little bit worse. My windshield's cracked now. I just got to hit the rock in the windshield. But, but we still laugh about that now. But, I think at that moment, I made a choice where either I could go down, have the poor me sulk, think I belong up top, or go down there and try to prove a point that I belong there. And, I told myself, once I get called back up, I'm not getting called back down again. I'm going to do whatever it takes to stay there. Torts became coach too, as well. That helped me. I started to play more. So probably going into my 3rd year pro is when I actually felt I belonged and I could contribute, and was a part of that team.
It seems like it's a common theme among some Rangers forwards that go through the minor league system. I'll give you as an example for sure. You played a few years in Hartford and then you came up and you were one of the best Rangers forwards. Chris Kreider's another example. He had struggled, going up and down the lineup. Obviously, he came in during the 2012 playoff run. And then, 2013, again, he was in the playoffs. But, up and down throughout the minors in 2013-14 with Alan Vigneault.
Yeah,
He started down in Hartford and had to work his way back up. But now look at him. Yeah. And then same thing with Zuccarello and Filipino now. So, yeah. It's a common theme amongst you guys.
Yeah, I think too, the hardest thing for me about the NHL was consistency, right? You have to learn how to, it's so hard. You play 82 games, you get practices in between, you have to bring it every single day. And to have that consistency was the hardest thing for me to learn. And then being in the minors helped you with that, right? You learn that consistency of how you have to bring it every night. You might not feel your best every single night, but you got to play, and you got to play well. And you might not feel great at practice the next day, but you got to work, and people are going to recognize if you're working in practice or not. So, people talk about being a pro. I think that's a big part of it, is learning how to be consistent in your performance night in and night out in the NHL.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I brought up Kreider, and I think it's really interesting that he's the one remaining Ranger
Yeah.
technically from the years that you were playing.
Yep.
It's crazy. It's crazy that after all these years, I mean, it has been what, 10 years, 10, 11 years since that 2012 run,
Since the
right?
2012 run, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's been 8 years, I think, since I've been there. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So what was it like having him join that team in the middle of the playoffs?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like, I knew nothing about him. You're so focused on your team, and you don't really pay any attention to prospects or anything else coming up. Like, you have no idea. And obviously, there's rumble. He comes in, and you hear and things like that. And then I don't know. Right away, you could just see that his size, his strength. I mean, he was a man. He came in. You know what I mean? Like, you could tell physically that he was going to be fine. It just was a point: is he going to mentally be able to step into a moment like this and perform? And there's no question he did, right? And he came in right away and made an impact. But I remember seeing him, and you could tell he was going to be a good player. Like, he was just a specimen. Like, he just, the size, he's got tree trunks for legs. He's just a beast. Like, shoots the puck so hard, his speed, everything. You could tell right away. As soon as I saw him, like, this kid's going to be a player. You know what I mean? And then to step in playoffs and play like he did, like he was unfazed, that he was in the Stanley Cup playoffs, showed his maturity as well. So he continues to get better. I mean, I'm not surprised by the year he put up last year as well. The 50 goals and everything else. He continues to get better, and obviously he's a huge part of that team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Definitely one of the leaders on the Rangers. He was killing it through the first 3 games of the playoffs.
Yep.
And he's established himself as his reputation is the net front presence, the screens, all those deflections. And I wonder, did he take a page out of your book? Because that was your style of play.
Yeah.
All your goals came. I mean, you had some nice deeks and dangles. I had a couple of highlight reels for you of you dangling some defenders, but I mean, a lot of your goals were scored at the front of the net. You think you took a page out of your book?
I don't know. He seems to be tipping the puck a lot better than I did. I tell you what, I never put up 50, but but you're right. I realized early on that puck has to go to the net to go in, right? So I park myself there, get beat up a little bit, and get rewarded, and sometimes I hit off you and go in. But yeah, he's definitely established himself as, I'd put him top 3 net front guys in the NHL right now, just, with his size, his strength. And now over the last couple of years, and it's through work, right? It's through learning. It's through off-season work of positioning yourself, using his body, using his leverage, and when to tip pucks and where to tip them. Yeah, it's been fun to watch his growth. It definitely has.
Yeah, I'm sure that must have been interesting for you. Like, he came in as a rookie in the locker room, like,
Yeah.
who's this guy? And then all of a sudden he's scoring goals in the playoffs, never played in the NHL before. And
Yeah, it was definitely cool. Really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to ask you, so like when you were named captain, right before you were captain, Chris Drury, who's the current GM of the Rangers, which is crazy. I've never thought that would happen, and he's doing a great job. He's doing
Awesome.
great. He did a good
Awesome
job.
Yeah.
Like, what did you learn from Chris Drury? Like, I'm sure you had to. He gave you some. He had to have rubbed off on you in some way.
Yeah, Drew kind of put me under his wing, to be honest with you. He taught me a lot. Me and him were kind of locked at the hip penalty killing together. If you remember that, we were out there a ton together, penalty killing. And I think the biggest thing I learned from Drew is just watching the way he carried himself day in and day out. He never was too high or too low emotionally, no matter what was going on with the team. He didn't speak up a ton, but when he spoke, it had weight to it. And that's what I kind of tried to model myself as a captain was after Drew. I had so much respect for his game, and any questions I had during the game or, any part of the season, I would go to Drew. He meant a lot to my career. And obviously we played in the Olympics together, which was awesome as well. And now to see what he's doing, as a GM, and it doesn't surprise me that he's in that spot. He's just so knowledgeable about hockey. You can tell he knows the game so well. His love, his passion for the game, and and he's built a hell of a team there in New York. I'll tell you that. He's done a great job. Even some of the trades he's made this year to try to put him over the hump. It's been impressive what he's done.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you're hinting at like he was more of a lead by example. And for
Yeah,
you, I think it
for
was
sure.
simple because your style of play is that like I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna hit everybody, I'm gonna block all these shots, I'm gonna play good defense, and I'm gonna score some goals. Like
Yeah,
that's a and for like the team that you had, the players around you were all that same style. Obviously, you had Gabrick who could shoot the puck and Richards who could set up plays and
yep,
stuff, but
yep.
you still had Dubinsky, Boyle, Pruss, Fedotenko, like those
That's
guys
yeah,
that could
yeah,
get dirty in the corners and stuff like that. I mean, that style of play though is had probably had so much like wear and tear on your body, like
yeah. It did.
how was that? Like, can you
Yeah,
describe that? Can you
yeah.
explain to me how
Unfortunately,
that all worked?
yeah, it definitely did. A lot of broken bones, a lot of surgeries. But I'll always say, I mean, like, it's probably why my back is the way it is and why I had to retire. But that's the only way I could play. That's the only way I had success. I couldn't be a guy that went out there and stayed on the perimeter and tried to use just skill to get by. I realized that when I was at my best was when I was hitting in those dirty areas, blocking shots, doing things like that. And yeah, I mean, it sucked. I mean, rehab sucked. It gets old. You want to be on the ice with the guys and you want to be out there playing. And towards the end of my career, I had double hip surgery. I had a hip surgery in Tampa. Came back for 18 games. Had to get it revised. Missed the rest of that year. And at that point, I had a shoulder surgery in Tampa as well. As it gets old. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, my body hurts. I don't want to rehab anymore. This kind of sucks. And then obviously with my back, it got so bad that they couldn't do anything for it. But I don't take anything back. If I could start again, I'd still play the same way. I'd still
Yeah.
do the same thing. I mean, absolutely blessed to play as long as I did in the NHL. But I'd be lying to you if those injuries and those rehabs, didn't suck. They did. They definitely did.
I almost feel like some athletes would change their style of play, like on based on injuries, but
Yeah.
you never did. Like, and I'm not saying like that's a bad thing that they're doing that. Like, I'll give a baseball example. Like Rick Ankiel was a pitcher, but he had a really bad injury and he had to become an outfielder. So like I
Yeah.
don't blame him for doing that. But there's like now that like I'm hearing it from your perspective, it's almost like you have so much more of an appreciation for that style of play. Like, guys like Girardi that give up their
Yeah.
body, like that's
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, like Dubinsky, I mean, he played in the league for a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah. And
Had
then
some good years with Columbus.
his wrist or hand ended up getting really bad too, to the point where he couldn't go anymore. And yeah, I mean, but like I said, I mean, that's what gave me success. I couldn't change my game or I'd be out of the league. To be
Mhm.
honest with you, like I couldn't do anything else but that. And then that last year in Tampa, though, when I started to change my game a little bit that year in Tampa because my back was so bad. And even in
Yeah.
practice, I would try to hold back and not go as hard as I could in practice because I didn't want to tweak something in my back. So towards the end of that year, the writing was on the wall. I could see it. I'm like, I'm a shell of what I used to be with what I'm doing out here. I was hoping I could get surgery and fix it and be back to normal, but obviously the doctors, told me there was nothing they could do to fix it. So at that point, I was like, I can't play with it. I'm not playing like I can play. So
Mhm.
that was definitely it.
For sure. The style again, I go back to it. The style of play dictated how you were as a captain of the Rangers and how you were an alternate too for Tampa
Yeah.
Bay too. I mean, well, I'll never forget the 2014-15 series. I mean, I was rooting for you to win the cup. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, but I mean,
After we locked you out, yeah, that was.
yeah.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I know you're a Ranger fan, and I love the Rangers to this day. But I don't know if there was a better feeling than winning Game 7, and just against the guys, all my buddies around that team. And I mean, we know, like, I got traded, and it wasn't the happiest of goodbyes for everybody, and a lot of things happened that year, myself included. Organization, pride was on the line. You know what I mean? So.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, that was a special moment for me in my
Yeah.
career, and because I think that Garden, you guys, the fans, meant so much to me, and to go full circle, and then not only did I go to the Stanley Cup Finals, but then to have that win in that building in front, like it was pretty special.
Every person I talk to and I bring up your name, like I say Callahan, they always say, "Oh, he was the best." Like, "Oh, he was such a great player." It's not even if I just mention it in passing, like, "Oh yeah, I was talking to Callahan, blah blah blah, and he said this." "Oh, I love Callahan, blah blah."
uh,
Like, you know what I mean? They always have to throw that in there for sure. I
I
mean,
appreciate it. Nothing like those New York fans,
yeah,
man. I do miss strolling out in that ice in the Garden, and hearing the chants and everything. I mean, that's
yeah,
especially the blue seats. Nothing like
of course,
the true blue seats. Those
of course.
it's a special place.
I was talking to my uncle's buddy yesterday when I went to the game.
Yep.
Fortunately, the Rangers lost, of course, but I mean, he was saying that if the Rangers somehow like this definitely wouldn't happen, of course, but if the Rangers in 2014 had you and St. Louis, that's a cup. That's a
Yeah.
cup.
Yeah. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, they have such a good team too. Like, what did they lose to LA? 3 overtimes, was it, in that
Yeah,
series?
so they had the lead in I think all three of those games. They
Yeah.
had they had
Yeah.
leads in all three of those.
I mean, that
And
was such a good team. I mean, Marty coming on too. I mean, he was so good. He had that overtime winner against Montreal.
yeah,
And I mean, I got nothing but respect for him, the way he played the game too. He played the game hard, the amount of skill he had, and obviously Hall of Famer. I've got to know him now, since we're done, an unbelievable guy as well. So then I talked to my, the old teammates. Everybody loved having him in the room. And I wish I do. I wish I got a chance to play with him, because he was unbelievable.
that would have been something. I mean, I love the fit with him in Montreal. I love that. I think
Yes, I
that's
agree.
such a
I
cool
agree.
fit there. Like the relationship between him and Caulfield, two similar
Yep,
like styles, like players, the size aspect of it for
for
sure.
sure.
Love
Yep.
it, love it. I have a couple questions like some from fans that were
Yeah.
they wanted to know your thoughts on Jacob Trouba as captain. Like what do you think of him?
I love it. I mean, he plays with emotion. I don't know what's happening in the room, so I'll never comment on that, because I don't know, right? I don't know how he is off the ice, but just seeing him on the ice, you can see he leads by example, kind of what we were talking about, right? Then you go back to what many call the turning point of the season. You feel like that big hit against Chicago, and throwing his helmet and everything else. And you can see his passion bleeds through into his play. You see how much he cares. Seems like the guys respect him. So he's definitely a guy I'd want on my team. I'll tell you that. And I don't want to play against him crossing that blue line. You could see him last night. You could see a couple of times he's really close to laying some guys
Yeah.
out. He's looking for that big hit. And but yeah, I think he's from the outside looking in, he looks like an unbelievable captain and well respected.
Yeah, you wouldn't consider him to be like a dirty player, right? I've heard
Oh
some people
yeah, no, not at all. I
have
mean,
that
you look at
conversation.
some of those hits. They're all clean. They're all clean. I love it. I mean, that's old school hockey right there,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's every time I see one of those hits, it's smile. I'm glad it's not me getting hit, and it's a smile on my face. I'm like, nice troops, that a boy, So it's I don't look him as dirty. And the thing is about him too is he'll answer the bell. You know what I mean? Like if he throws a big hit, or they don't like the way he's playing, or the other team thinks he's dirty, he'll drop the gloves with you and he'll beat you up as well. So it's he's a fun player to watch.
Yeah, he's been doing it all season, pretty much his entire tenure with the Rangers. And
Yep.
it's weird, like there's in my lifetime, I've only witnessed what, like four captains. So Drury, you, McDonough, and now
Yep.
Trouba. Like
Yep.
there was such a long gap in between like captains between McDonough and Trouba.
Yeah.
Like
I
that was
respect it though. I mean,
yeah.
I remember them doing that, and I was asked, like, do they think they need a captain? And yes, I really do feel like you need a captain. But if you're not, you don't slap a C on somebody just so you have a captain. You know what I mean? And at that time, if they didn't feel like they knew who that guy was, then you don't do it, right?
Mhm.
And obviously, they labeled Trouba as that guy eventually, and I think they made a great decision.
Yeah, I agree with you with what you're saying. You can't just give it to anybody. It's got to have meaning and
Yeah.
value to it.
Yep.
And I mean, there was definitely some guys in there that are worthy of it, like Zibanejad or
Yep.
Kreider, even
And that's
Panarin, maybe.
that's another thing I said is, like, people ask you, like, because I got asked from Ranger fans as well, who should be the captain? Who should be the captain? I'm like, listen, I'm not in that room. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, you could see what you want to see on the ice, but there's so much that goes behind scenes that we don't see, right? And if you're not in that room, you don't know who the leader is. You don't know who's talking. You don't know who guys are following. You don't know that stuff. So I'd be like, I don't know. And none of us out here, media or anybody else, should know either. Like, only the guys in that room know, who the leaders are and who deserves to be captain and things like that. So I think they made a great choice the way I'm looking at it. And you're right. There could be other guys as well. Kreider would be a great pick as well, right? I definitely thought it was going to be Truber or Kreider, and I don't think they could have went wrong with either of them. So, yeah, it's been good.
You have any cool stories or memories you can think of, like, as captain, that you could share, like, on the ice?
When I got named captain was pretty funny. I don't know if you've heard this story or not before. I've told it before, but so I was in an off season. I was in contract talks with the Rangers that summer. And it was me and Dubinsky were in contract talks. Things were going back and forth between us and Glenn Sather. We were going to arbitration or whatever. And Torts calls me, right? So Torts calls me and he's like, so Callie, this is, they want to give you this much money. Is this whatever it was? He's like, will you take that? I'm like, no, Torts, I'm not, I don't want to take that. And he goes, I wouldn't take that much either. But anyways, I wanted to talk to you. He goes, I wanted to tell you something. I'm like, what's going on, Torts? He's like, you better sign quickly because you're going to be captain next year, and I was like, what? So he, blew me away. I remember I was standing in my bedroom right in front of my bed. I'll never forget where I was. And then me and him, shared some words together about it and stuff that I'll keep private, but it was, I'll never forget that moment. There was a little bit of laughter at the start, and then he hit me with that. And I was like, holy cow, I called my agent right away. I'm like, we got to figure out a deal quickly here. Let's figure this thing out,
I could totally see Torts saying it just like you laid it out.
Yeah.
Would you take this money? Anyways, I wouldn't take it anyway. Anyways,
yeah, I wouldn't take that much either, but they want me to ask. All right.
Love it. I love it. Yeah. And my last set of questions is concerning the Rangers versus Devils playoff series. I mean, I got to get your thoughts on all that. I mean, you talked last night before we started recording. I was telling you that I saw what you said about the power play changes, moving Zibanejad out of the left dot for that one timer. What else do you think like the Rangers missed last night, or was it just that the Devils were outstanding, just so much better?
Yeah, no, I don't. I think you have to give credit to the Devils. There's no question, right? They came in with a game plan, and I thought especially the last two games, Devils used their speed a lot more, their transition game a lot more. But as I look at the Rangers, I think the shocking for me was Game 4. I'm gonna be honest. I thought they'd come out with a ton of emotion. They lost Game 3 on home ice after winning 2 in the Prudential Center. Come out Game 4, I thought like, these guys are going to come out flying, tons of emotion, hitting everything. And I didn't see that. And I was surprised by that. So I think credit the Devils for some, playing well, but at the same time, I'd like to see the Rangers just sustain some more pressure in the offensive zone, get some pucks in deep behind their D, try to control some O-zone time. Not everything has to be through the neutral zone. You turn the puck over against the Devils and it's going to be down your throat, right? Their transition game is so good. And one of the other things is you got to get the top guys going. It's if we sat here before the series started and said we're going into Game 6, Zibanejad and Panarin don't have any goals yet, you're probably thinking, wow, we're going to Game 6, right? You thought the series might be over at that point if those guys haven't even haven't produced yet. So I guess that's good news. But on the flip side of that is you got to get those guys going, and that goes to the power play. What I was talking about, I'd like to see him on the left dot, hitting his one timer. They started the game like that in the first period. He had one good shot, one good shot on net. And then the other one, he had 2 shots, and the other one I think was blocked by maybe Marino, had a good block on it. And then the second period comes and they switch him out of that spot and put him back in the hole. And, as I said to you before that we did this show, is like, it's not so much even about him scoring. It's just get some more touches, get some shots on net. And it just starts, you start to feel the puck and you start to get your confidence back. Right. And maybe that bleeds into 5-on-5 play as well. But I don't know. I mean, I had Rangers winning in 7, that's still alive. And that's the beauty of this. That's the beauty of the playoff hockey though. There's ups and downs in a game. There's ups and downs in the middle of games, in between games. And it's how do you control those emotions, and how do you get those emotions going again when you're down, And I think right now for the Rangers, they've won 2 in Prudential Center. They should have no fear going back in there to try to win, try to win again. So it'll be interesting to see. But I was surprised last couple games for sure.
Yeah, the Devils had a lot of odd man rushes last night, and
They did.
a
Yep.
lot of people were talking. I heard a lot of people talking about how the Devils had 20 shots in the third period when the
Yeah.
Rangers were down 3-0,
Yeah.
and
Well,
the Rangers only had 2.
You know what happens too? And you're down, you try to start forcing things, and that's where turnovers come into play. That's where odd man rushes come into play because you're forcing. I mean, which is understandable, but yeah, I mean, you got to credit the Devils the way they played in the third, and they shut it down. And yeah, I don't know. I think you look at the lineups, and it's hard for me to think the Rangers don't win Game 6 and get back in this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it almost seems like it's a mentality, kind of like strategic way, like an approach that's off. Like you mentioned that they have all these turnovers. They're throwing some passes that maybe not to an open man. Maybe the lane is blocked, but they're still trying to do it like the East-West. Is it that the Devils are just clogging up all the space on the ice? Was that their adjustment after Game 2? You get outscored 10-2.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously you're tightening it up for sure. There's no question about that. And then on the flip side, I think if you're the Rangers, you have to realize when a play's there and a play's not there, right? You don't force it, and be okay with chipping it in and trying to go get it. Live to fight another day. If you're gonna give that many odd man rushes, you're not going to win the game. I don't care if who's in that. Shesterkin and Lundqvist together. It's too many odd man rushes. Shesterkin played unbelievable last night, and with some big saves, and Schmid too. I mean, the way that the rookie has come in for the Devils and stepped in and it's played has been very, very impressive for me. But test him, throw everything you got at him. He's a young kid who's never been in the playoffs before. I'd like to see him pepper him a little bit more, get some traffic in there, and limit the turnovers for sure. But yeah, try to get back to the way, you do have Shesterkin in net, so open it up a little bit too. There's times where you could go, take that extra risk, but it's got to be calculated. It definitely has to be.
Mm-hmm. It seemed like there was also a level of frustration too with the Rangers last night. I mean, Shesterkin, being at the game, I saw Shesterkin kind of fling the puck up the ice. And did you notice that as well?
Yeah, a little bit. That's human nature. Frustration is going to creep in, right? I mean, everybody wants to win. Everybody's trying to have success, and when things aren't going your way, you're going to get frustrated. I mean, there's no question about that. I don't mind that at all, as long as you channel it in the right direction. And, that's what they have to do.
Yeah, for sure. What's your if you have to lay out a prediction for Game 6, what's the final score of that one?
Final score, Game 6. I think Shesterkin's going to stand on his head. He's going to give up 1, and then we're going to go 3-1 Rangers. No, 4-1 Rangers with an empty netter.
There's Ryan Callahan's ice.
There it is. Mark it down. Delete it if it doesn't happen, but if it happens, replay
it. That's your ice cold take of the week.
I like it.
4-1 Rangers. That's a tall order. Rangers have only scored twice in the past 3 games.
They're gonna open up. They're due. Right? Yeah.
They are due. I mean, I've seen it happen before. I mean,
this team can score. There's not, what I mean? I'm not worried about this team. They can score. Like obviously they haven't last couple of games, but I mean, you look at that lineup, they can score.
I had some people like sarcastically, jokingly asked, like after I had tried finding like the clip of you talking about the Rangers during intermission, and some people were saying, ask him if you should coach if he will coach the Rangers. Ask him if he'll coach the Rangers. I'm like, I don't know about that, but I mean, would you ever consider coaching? It doesn't have to be the Rangers, but an NHL team.
I don't know. I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now.
I
don't know.
Say that.
I'd like to be back in the fight. I'm not going to lie to you. I'd like to have some skin in the game, and I do miss the competitive side of things. I definitely do, but I'm happy right now. See where things go.
Yeah, I mean, that would be cool to see behind the Rangers bench. Though I'm not gonna lie. As a fan, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm a huge Mets fan as well. It's just like I would love to see David Wright back in the Mets like clubhouse as a bench coach or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Just
Yep.
that aspect of having one of your favorite athletes come back and coach the team that you're still rooting for. Um, Before I let you go, you gotta tell Greg Wyshynski if the Rangers or win this series, he's got to do the dance and Larry dance.
I'll tell him. I
Yeah,
will.
because he likes to pick on Rangers fans. I know. He's a great
Does
writer.
he?
He's great. Yeah, he's a huge Devils fan. I know Wyshynski. He's a
I'm gonna have
big
to get a
Devils
hold
fan.
of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't have that. I mean, I'm battling enough with PK Subban in studio about the Devils and the Rangers, so I'll have to add Wyshynski to my list.
Where's your Ric Flair outfit?
Yeah, I don't have one of those.
That was crazy. I love the dynamic with Subban and Subban and Messier
I know
is so cool.
it's awesome. I know they've done a great job, and
Yeah.
I didn't know Subban at all before I started working with him. He's been awesome. We've had a lot of fun together. I enjoy being in studio with them. Yeah, but tons of laughs. I'll tell you that. It's a good
Yeah,
time.
terrific insight. Well, Ryan, I appreciate you doing this with me. Man, this is awesome, unbelievable. You're doing a great job at ESPN. Keep doing what you're doing. I love it.
Thanks, Joey. I appreciate it, and it's fun being on.